What if I told you that Spartan women, not just the warriors, had a significant role in shaping the course of battle? It's a story you've never heard before. Imagine a society where women didn't just support warriors, they changed the very fabric of warfare itself. Most people think Spartan women were just wives and mothers, but the truth is far more unexpected. Let's uncover their power. At first glance, Spartan women might seem like they were just caretakers, waiting at home for their men to return from battle. But this couldn't be further from the truth. Spartan society placed just as much value on the strength of women as it did on the warriors who fought. In fact, the role of Spartan women was so critical to the survival and success of Sparta that without them, Sparta may not have become the legendary military force we remember today. Unlike other Greek city-states, Spartan women weren't confined to the domestic sphere. They were trained in physical fitness just like the men. Yes, you heard that right. Spartan women were expected to be tough, not just in their hearts, but in their bodies. They participated in physical exercises, which prepared them to endure hardships, manage their homes during times of war, and most importantly, raise the next generation of warriors. This was part of their responsibility in preserving Spartan culture. Imagine the strength it took for Spartan women to raise sons who were destined to become soldiers. These women weren't just nurturing, they were shaping warriors. When a boy was born, the family didn't simply wait for him to grow. His future as a soldier was planned almost from the moment of birth. The strength of the mother had a direct influence on the future strength of her son, and thus, the entire Spartan army. Women were essential to maintaining this unbreakable chain that defined Sparta. One of the most powerful aspects of Spartan women was their ability to influence Spartan society. While men fought on the front lines, Spartan women took the responsibility of managing the household, ensuring that everything functioned smoothly during the absence of the warriors. But they didn't just oversee daily life, they wielded power too. Women controlled land, and in many cases, they were the ones making important decisions about wealth and governance. They weren't just sidelined in Spartan society, they were key players in maintaining the Spartan way of life. But it wasn't just about the day-to-day. Spartan women were also guardians of Spartan ideals, and this was where their true power lay. When their men went to fight, women didn't simply sit at home praying for their safe return. Instead, they pushed their men to be as strong and as capable as possible. Words were their weapons. Famous sayings, such as, "Come back with your shield or on it," were used by Spartan women to ensure their sons and husbands understood the high stakes. These words were more than just encouragement. They were a challenge to Spartan men, a reminder that their lives were dedicated to Sparta, and that failure wasn't an option. The influence of these words didn't stop at the domestic level. The values that Spartan women instilled in their families contributed directly to Sparta's military successes. While men were fighting on the front lines, the teachings of their mothers and wives were always in the back of their minds. Spartan women didn't just raise warriors, they raised warriors who fought with honor, courage, and an unyielding drive to succeed. This powerful connection between Spartan women and Spartan warriors wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. Spartan women were instrumental in shaping military tactics too. Think about it, if warriors were to succeed on the battlefield, they needed not only strength but also mental resilience. This is where Spartan women came in. Their influence extended far beyond the family. By instilling principles of endurance, resilience, and tactical thinking, they were helping to create an entire generation of soldiers who fought not just for Sparta, but for the legacy their mothers had instilled in them. And while Spartan men fought in battle, the women back home kept the Spartan way of life intact. Women were the ones holding Sparta together during the long wars that defined the city-state's military history. They were responsible for ensuring that families remained strong, children were trained, and soldiers had the support they needed when they returned from battle. Without this balance, it's doubtful that Sparta would have remained as powerful and as influential as it did. So the next time you think of Spartan women, don't just imagine them as quiet supporters in the background. They were the backbone of Spartan society, the unsung heroines who held everything together, who shaped the warriors who fought on the front lines, and who ensured that the Spartan culture endured through generations. Their role in the success of Sparta can't be underestimated. It was their strength, their words, their actions, and their courage that truly shaped the course of history. And in the end, we are left with a fascinating, if often overlooked, part of Spartan history. Spartan women weren't just warriors' wives. They were warriors in their own right, shaping the very foundations of Sparta's military might. This was a society where men and women stood side by side, each playing a critical role in ensuring the survival and strength of their world. What Spartan women did for their society was more than anyone might have guessed, and it's a legacy that still resonates today. Did Spartan women ever fight on the battlefield? You might be surprised to learn that they did, but not in the way you expect. While they may not have fought in large-scale battles the way men did, Spartan women were deeply involved in the preparation for battle. Their contributions were subtle, but they were just as critical to the Spartan war machine. Imagine a society where women didn't simply support warriors. Instead, they trained alongside them, prepared for combat, and even wielded weapons. Spartan women were not relegated to traditional roles of homemakers. No, they were trained in physical fitness, strength, and endurance just as men were. The Spartan idea of fitness didn't just mean running laps or doing basic exercises. Women practiced wrestling, boxing, and even javelin throwing, all to prepare them for the demanding tasks that came with living in a society constantly at war. But the question still stands: did they fight in battles? To understand the answer, we need to look closer at what fighting meant in the Spartan context. Spartan women may not have marched out onto the battlefield in full armor, but their role in shaping and ensuring the readiness of the Spartan warriors was undeniable. They contributed to battle preparation in ways that might surprise you. One of the most remarkable facts is that Spartan women were trained in combat techniques alongside the men. Yes, they didn't hold shields in war, but they held them in training. Women learned to wield weapons and were involved in combat drills. Their focus wasn't just on strength, but also on strategy. In many cases, the women's role was as essential as the warriors, though their battlefield was one of preparation, strategy, and emotional resilience. You might be thinking, that sounds more like training than actual combat, and you'd be right, but the impact of their training was profound. Spartan society valued strong women just as much as it valued strong men. Women weren't seen as just secondary characters in the Spartan military machine. They were an integral part of it. The skills they learned weren't about fighting in every battle, but about making sure that when battle came, Spartan men were ready. This training was the foundation of a mindset that turned Spartan warriors into some of the fiercest soldiers in history. It wasn't only about learning how to fight, it was about living the Spartan way. Women were expected to embody the same virtues as the men. They lived by the same codes of honor, discipline, and resilience. The men and women of Sparta, though their roles differed, shared an unspoken understanding of what it meant to be Spartan. And while the men fought on the front lines, the women held down the fort, managing households, training the next generation, and making sure that their Spartan warriors never faltered. While Spartan women didn't fight in large-scale battles, their contributions to smaller skirmishes and the war effort were crucial. They weren't just standing by, they were working behind the scenes, ensuring Sparta's survival in an unforgiving world. They prepared, they trained, and they supported Spartan men in ways that extended beyond what anyone might expect. Here's the kicker: Spartan society valued the role of women so highly that it integrated their influence into the very core of Spartan military success. Every Spartan warrior knew that his ability to fight on the battlefield depended not only on his training, but also on the emotional and psychological support he received from the women in his life. Spartan women weren't just background figures. They were powerhouses who contributed to the success of the entire military machine. Let's face it, most of us were taught that Spartan women's primary job was to raise warriors and stay at home. Truth, though, is far more surprising. They may not have been warriors in the traditional sense, but Spartan women played a pivotal role in creating a war-ready society that survived and thrived in some of the harshest conditions imaginable. Now, think about this. Their training, their influence, and their unyielding commitment to the Spartan way were the unseen forces behind the Spartan warriors who would go on to make history. So, the next time you think of Spartan women, don't just picture them as quiet observers. Remember them as active participants in Sparta's success. Their influence extended far beyond the home, and in many ways, their impact shaped the very course of Spartan history. Words can be mightier than swords, especially when they're spoken by Spartan women. Let's take a look at how their sayings influenced strategy. Spartan society was built on discipline, honor, and courage, but it was also deeply shaped by the words of its women. Their sayings weren't just motivational. They were commands, reminders, and mantras that pushed their men to fight not only for victory, but for survival. Words such as, "come back with your shield or on it," have become iconic, representing the very essence of Spartan bravery and unrelenting commitment. This simple phrase, often spoken by mothers and wives to their sons and husbands, captured the heart of Spartan culture. There was no room for defeat, no second chances. Now, you might be thinking, how can a few words hold that much power? It's because these words weren't just advice. They were cultural imperatives. When a Spartan woman said this, it wasn't merely a parting statement. It was a declaration of what was expected of her warrior, a challenge to return victorious or not at all. It was a message that demanded bravery and unwavering loyalty to the Spartan way of life. For the men, these words were an unspoken code, a psychological contract that pushed them to fight with everything they had. The real genius behind these sayings was their ability to forge a connection between emotional strength and physical prowess. The mantra, "come back with your shield or on it," carried with it the weight of Spartan values, honor, sacrifice, and the community's unyielding reliance on its warriors. But it also conveyed something deeper. Spartan warriors weren't just fighting for personal glory. They were fighting for the legacy and expectations set by those who love them. And that's where the strength of Spartan women lay. Through their words, they instilled a sense of responsibility so powerful that it became part of a warrior's very identity. Imagine carrying that weight into battle, knowing that your community, your family, and the very fabric of your society depended on your success. It's fascinating to consider how these words directly shaped Spartan battle tactics. Think about the psychological impact on a soldier who has heard these words from his mother or wife countless times. As they prepared for battle, those words echoed in their minds, setting the stage for action. Spartan women weren't just encouraging their men, they were shaping the strategy itself. Their words created an environment where defeat wasn't an option and retreat wasn't allowed. Spartan women weren't afraid to push their men toward victory, even if it meant hard, brutal decisions. In a world where warriors could easily be swayed by fear or fatigue, Spartan women women stepped in to remind them of the stakes. When a Spartan warrior faced an overwhelming opponent, the thought of returning on his shield became a powerful motivator. To return defeated without the shield meant disgrace not only for the warrior but for his entire family. Spartan women understood this deep fear of dishonor and used it to drive men forward. It was a cruel but effective psychological tool, one that kept warriors on the front lines, fighting with every ounce of strength, even when it seemed impossible. This emotional influence didn't just shape battle tactics, it shaped the entire Spartan culture. Spartan women understood the importance of pushing their men beyond their limits. It's easy to think that the greatest influence on Spartan men came from their military training, but the reality is that these sayings and the emotional strength behind them were just as influential. They were part of the warrior's code, an unspoken contract that bound Spartan warriors to a code of conduct and a way of life that went beyond the battlefield. There's something profound about the simplicity of Spartan women's words. These weren't just empty platitudes or expressions of love. They were battle cries in their own right. In a society where honor and glory were everything, these words made sure that Spartan warriors understood the weight of their actions. The idea that warriors should come back with their shield or on it became more than just an idea. It was a call to arms, an expectation that shaped Spartan tactics and culture for generations. The impact of these words wasn't limited to individual warriors. They contributed to the Spartan way of life as a whole. The entire society operated under the influence of these sayings and the values they represented. Spartan men fought not just for personal glory, but for the honor of their community and the legacy of their families. These words reminded them that failure wasn't an option, and that Spartan women were there, not only supporting them, but demanding their best. By shaping Spartan warriors emotionally and mentally, Spartan women helped ensure their success on the battlefield. Their influence went far beyond the home. It shaped the very culture of warfare itself. And while we often think of Spartan warriors as the heroes of their stories, we must remember that behind every victorious warrior was a Spartan woman, her words pushing him forward, reminding him of his duty to return victorious. These words, passed down through generations, became a central part of Spartan battle tactics. They weren't just motivational speeches, they were strategies in and of themselves. Through their words, Spartan women influenced the very essence of Spartan military culture, reminding every soldier of the ultimate cost of failure and the honor that came with victory. This psychological influence was key to Spartan success and a testament to the power of Spartan women in shaping the course of history. And the influence of these sayings didn't stop at the battlefield. They echoed through Spartan society, teaching future generations the true meaning of sacrifice, honor, and loyalty. These words became part of the fabric of Sparta itself, a culture where victory was the only acceptable outcome, and where Spartan women were the unsung architects of that unyielding spirit. Spartan women weren't just strong in their homes, they had an impact on politics and society. But how did they influence Spartan leadership? Most people think of Spartan women as silent figures in the background, supporting their warriors while their men fought for honor and glory. But the reality is much more complex. Spartan women were not only warriors in their own right, they were also influential political figures, shaping the course of Spartan governance and military strategy. Their role in Spartan society was multifaceted, and it extended far beyond the home front. One of the most fascinating aspects of Spartan women was their power within the family and clan structure. They weren't simply the wives and mothers of warriors. In fact, Spartan women held significant influence within their own households. They were responsible for managing the wealth and resources of the household, making decisions about how land was used, and ensuring that their children were trained to carry on the Spartan legacy. This control over property and resources gave Spartan women a degree of power that was unprecedented in the ancient world. But this power wasn't confined to just the domestic sphere. Spartan women, particularly those from influential families, could wield significant political influence. Some owned large estates and controlled vast amounts of wealth, which gave them leverage in matters of governance. They were not just bystanders in political affairs, they were active participants in shaping the direction of Spartan society. Political leaders, both military and civil, often sought the counsel of Spartan women when making important decisions, particularly in times of war. This influence was especially important during times of military crisis, when decisions about war and strategy were critical. Spartan women were deeply involved in the discussions that shaped the outcomes of battles, not just in terms of strategy, but in terms of the moral and psychological strength of the warriors. In many cases, their advice was sought by the Spartan kings and military leaders because they were seen as wise and capable decision makers. Their role in Spartan society ensured that military decisions were balanced with the broader needs of the community, making sure that the warriors were always in the right mindset to fight for the survival of Sparta. Spartan women also played a key role in influencing the men who led Sparta. Their sharp intelligence, their ability to manage vast estates, and their understanding of the political and military landscape made them indispensable to Spartan leadership. They were more than just mothers and wives. They were advisors, confidants, and strategists in their own right. Their influence on Spartan leaders was far-reaching, and it helped ensure that Sparta remained a formidable power in the ancient world. Perhaps the most surprising aspect of Spartan women's political influence was their ability to shape Spartan military decisions. The famous Spartan saying, "Come back with your shield or on it," wasn't just a motivational slogan for the warriors. It was a reminder that the men fought not only for their own glory, but for the legacy of their families. Spartan women, through their words and their actions, made it clear that honor and loyalty were paramount. This cultural expectation, driven by the influence of Spartan women, was a key component of Sparta's military success. The emotional and psychological pressure that Spartan women placed on their men created an environment where warriors didn't just fight for victory, they fought for survival. In addition to their roles within the household and political spheres, Spartan women also had an active voice in the military decisions of their time. Women like Gorgo, the wife of King Leonidas, are known for their sharp political insights and their active involvement in Spartan military affairs. Gorgo, for example, was one of the few women in history whose political advice was recorded. Her influence on her husband, the king, and her participation in strategic discussions showed just how vital Spartan women were to the military success of their city-state. Spartan women's political influence was a testament to their independence and strength. They were not bound by traditional gender roles, as were women in other Greek city-states. While other women were confined to their homes, Spartan women played a key role in shaping the political and military future of their society. They helped guide the decisions that ensured the survival of Sparta during its most critical moments. Spartan women's political power was not just about influence, it was about action. Their ability to manage their households, control land, and influence the political and military decisions of Sparta made them central to the success of their society. Without their contributions, Sparta may not have been able to achieve the military dominance it did. The partnership between men and women in Spartan society created a unique dynamic that supported the Spartan war machine. In many ways, Spartan women were the unsung heroes of Sparta's political and military success. While the warriors fought on the front lines, it was the Spartan women who ensured that the warriors had the resources, support, and moral strength to succeed. Their influence on Spartan leadership helped shape the city-state into the powerhouse it became. And this influence wasn't just limited to Sparta, it was felt throughout the ancient world. Other Greek city-states took notice of the power and independence of Spartan women, and many adopted Spartan customs regarding women's roles in society. The political and military influence of Spartan women was one of the key factors that contributed to Sparta's success. Their sharp minds, their leadership abilities, and their unwavering commitment to the Spartan way of life ensured that Sparta remained a dominant force in the ancient world. Without them, Sparta's success on the battlefield would not have been possible. Their legacy continues to be a reminder of the power of women in shaping history, even in societies where they were often overlooked. Here's a comprehensive outline for the YouTube video on the topic: How Spartan Women Changed the Course of Battles. With the unique angle it's not what you might think. The outline uses a storytelling formula and is designed to engage viewers while educating them. The concept of honor in Sparta was everything. It wasn't just a word, it was a way of life. Honor was woven into the very fabric of Spartan society, and both men and women were expected to uphold it. For the Spartans, honor was inseparable from battle. It wasn't just about fighting, it was about fighting to uphold one's family, city, and reputation. And this shared sense of honor wasn't just taught in the training grounds or the battlefields, it was instilled by the women of Sparta, who were just as integral in shaping it as the men who fought. When we think of Spartan warriors, we often imagine the men in their armor, fighting side by side with their shields. But the influence of Spartan women in the cultivation of honor started long before the battle ever began. They instilled the values of courage, discipline, and loyalty in their sons, ensuring that their warriors were as mentally prepared as they were physical. One of the most notable ways Spartan women influenced honor was through their sharp, direct speech. Spartan women were known to speak plainly, without room for excuses or weakness. A mother's command to her son before he went to battle might have been something as simple as, "Come back with your shield," or "On it." These words were more than just a battle cry. They were a reminder that failure was not an option. Honor meant survival, and survival meant victory at all costs. But what was the true role of Spartan women in shaping this concept of honor? To understand this, we need to look at the way they balanced emotional strength with physical prowess. Spartan women weren't just there to motivate their men to fight. They embodied honor in their own right. They didn't just send their husbands and sons off to war with words. They ensured their own lives embodied Spartan values. By maintaining their integrity and strength, they became living examples of Spartan honor, creating a cycle where each generation would uphold these ideals. For example, when a Spartan woman lost a husband or son in battle, her grief wasn't just her own. It became a rallying cry for the surviving men. Women in Sparta weren't seen as fragile or passive. Instead, they became symbols of resilience, teaching the men that the battle for honor was a collective effort, one that extended beyond the battlefield. Through this lens, Spartan women didn't just manage the home or raise warriors. They were the very embodiment of Spartan honor. Their leadership and influence extended to their families, the community, and even into the politics of Sparta itself, ensuring that the spirit of honor was passed on generation after generation. What if I told you that Spartan women, not just the warriors, had a significant role in shaping the course of battle? It's a story you've never heard before. Imagine a society where women didn't just support warriors, they changed the very fabric of warfare itself. Most people think Spartan women were just wives and mothers, but the truth is far more unexpected. Let's uncover their power. In the world of ancient Sparta, warriors were the backbone of society, and their battles are legendary. military. But what if I told you that their mothers, wives, and daughters were just as instrumental in the city's military might? Spartan women were trained not only to run households but to also uphold the values that shaped their warriors' strength and the honor of their city-state. Let's take a deeper look at the true role of Spartan women in shaping the course of battle. The role of Spartan women in ancient Sparta was far from passive. Most people imagine Spartan women as simply staying home and waiting for their men to return from battle, but that couldn't be further from the truth. Spartan women were trained just like the men in physical fitness, expected to be as strong and resilient. They weren't just mothers, they were the pillars of Spartan society, making sure that the warriors had the support they needed, emotionally and practically, to achieve victory. Spartan women were responsible for more than just running the household, and took charge of the family, managing resources, and even training their sons to become warriors. This influence stretched far beyond the home. These women were shaping Spartan warriors before they even set foot on the battlefield. Their physical training wasn't just for show, it was a vital part of a larger cultural expectation that Spartan women would be strong in both body and mind. Without the strength of these women, Sparta's culture would not have been able to thrive in the face of constant war. So what was the role of Spartan women in combat? We know that Spartan women didn't traditionally fight in battles, but what if I told you they were crucial to the success of Sparta's warriors? While women didn't fight in the large-scale battles, they certainly prepared for combat in their own way. They were trained to handle weapons, learn combat strategies, and most importantly, to pass these lessons on to their children. Spartan women were seen as equals to men in terms of strength, and their physical prowess balanced the war effort. They played a critical role in ensuring that Sparta's warriors were strong, brave, and capable of fighting. The impact of Spartan women on men's resolve during battle can't be overstated. When warriors headed out to fight, they did so with the strength of their women behind them. Spartan women didn't just cheer on their men, they were the emotional bedrock of Sparta's warriors. The emotional connection between Spartan soldiers and their women was vital to maintaining their focus and resolve on the battlefield. The pressure from these women to be brave and victorious was immense. The words of Spartan women were powerful tools, motivating warriors to fight with determination, reminding them of the honor at stake. One of the most powerful influences Spartan women had on their warriors was through the simple yet commanding words they spoke. "Come back with your shield," or "on it," was a mantra that every Spartan mother or wife would tell her loved one before he went to battle. This was more than just a wish for victory. It was a declaration that survival was paramount, and failure was not an option. These words became ingrained in Spartan society and worked as a psychological tool to prepare warriors for the brutal realities of war. There was no room for retreat, no room for cowardice, and these sayings reflected the Spartan belief in a total commitment to the warrior code. But the influence of Spartan women wasn't limited to the battlefield. They played a critical role in Sparta's political and social structures as well. Spartan women had considerable power within their families, and they exercised this power in ways that directly impacted the political and military decisions made by Spartan men. Some Spartan women even owned land, giving them a unique financial leverage that further bolstered their influence. Political leaders often turned to Spartan women for guidance on military matters, recognizing their insight into strategy and governance. This influence extended beyond the family home and into the very heart of Spartan politics, where Spartan women were seen as integral players in shaping decisions. Spartan women were more than just passive figures. They were active influencers in the political landscape, helping to shape the future of Sparta. They helped ensure that the warrior ethos was passed down through the generations, fostering a society that remained resilient in the face of adversity. Their advice and influence helped guide the men of Sparta in making crucial military and political decisions that affected the entire city-state. This influence was especially important during times of war. When the warriors of Sparta went off to battle, they did so with the emotional backing of the women in their lives. Spartan women were experts in rallying morale and keeping their soldiers emotionally prepared for the fight ahead. These women didn't just provide emotional support, they inspired fear and respect. A Spartan widow, for instance, wasn't seen as weak or frail. She was viewed as a symbol of strength. When a Spartan woman lost her husband or child in battle, her grief was seen as a call to action. These emotional reactions weren't just about mourning, they were about continuing the fight, about honoring the memory of the fallen through the strength of the living. This unique emotional influence, combined with their political power and influence, contributed to Spartan warriors' fierce loyalty and courage. Spartan women had a profound impact on the way their soldiers approached battle, and their ability to motivate, guide, and inspire their men helped Sparta maintain its position as one of the most formidable military forces in the ancient world. It's clear that Spartan women were much more than just caregivers and homefront managers. They were warriors in their own right, shaping the culture, morale, and resolve of the Spartan warriors who fought on the front lines. Their impact is often overlooked, but without the strength, guidance, and emotional power of Spartan women, Sparta might never have become the military powerhouse it was. So, as we uncover the true role of Spartan women, remember, their influence was crucial to the outcome of every battle. Without them, the Spartans would not have been the legendary warriors we remember today. What if I told you that Spartan women, not just the warriors, had a significant role in shaping the course of battle? Imagine a society where women didn't just support warriors, they changed the very fabric of warfare itself. Most people think Spartan women were just wives and mothers. But the truth is far more unexpected. Let's uncover their power. When we think of Sparta, we picture warriors clad in armor, fighting on the front lines in some of the most brutal battles in history. But what if I told you that Spartan women were not just passive figures waiting at home for their husbands and sons to return? These women were the unsung heroes who shaped not only the warriors, but the very survival of Sparta itself. They trained, managed, and guided the next generation of soldiers, and their influence was as crucial to Sparta's military dominance as the men who fought in battle. Now let's dive into how these women changed the course of history. The role of Spartan women in ancient Sparta wasn't just about staying home and keeping the house in order. Most people think Spartan women stayed home and waited for their men to return from battle, but that's not the whole story. Spartan women were expected to be just as strong as the men. They were trained in physical fitness from a young age, just like their male counterparts. Spartan women didn't just play a supportive role. They were active participants in the ongoing strength and survival of the Spartan state. Their toughness was both physical and mental, preparing them to be more than just caregivers, but crucial members of Spartan society. These women weren't just managing the household. They were responsible for ensuring the next generation of Spartan warriors was ready. They trained their sons in combat and upheld Spartan values. This gave them a crucial role in Sparta's ongoing war efforts, but their influence didn't stop at the home front. Spartan women were expected to uphold and pass down the Spartan ideals: strength, honor, and resilience. They were the bedrock of Spartan society, ensuring that its most vital tradition, its warrior culture, would survive and thrive. We know they didn't serve as soldiers in the traditional sense, but they were warriors in their own right. Spartan women were never formally soldiers, but they took part in combat preparations. They trained with weapons, learned how to fight, and passed these skills down to their sons. While they didn't engage in large-scale warfare, they contributed in small skirmishes, and their physical strength was recognized by the men of Sparta. In a world where strength was a societal necessity, Spartan women were as capable as their male counterparts. They weren't just bystanders. They were essential to Sparta's military might, preparing warriors for the challenges of battles. It's often said that behind every great man is a great woman, but in Sparta it was far more than that. Spartan women directly influenced their men's strength and resolve. The emotional power of Spartan women cannot be overstated. It was the words of these women, mothers, wives, and daughters, that inspired Spartan warriors to go to battle with the courage and tenacity for which they are known. Spartan women taught their sons the importance of honor, survival, and victory. Their unshakable belief in Spartan ideals was passed down through the generations, creating a psychological foundation that made Spartan soldiers some of the most formidable in the ancient world. The pressure to fight bravely and return victorious wasn't just on the battlefield. It was felt at home. Spartan women demanded that their men uphold the warrior code, that they return victorious or not at all. These emotional expectations were a driving force for the soldiers, propelling them to fight with unmatched bravery. It wasn't just about fighting for Sparta. It was about fighting for the honor of the women who had raised, trained, and believed in them. One of the most iconic Spartan sayings is "Come back with your shield or on it." This phrase was often uttered by Spartan women to their sons and husbands before they went into battle. The words carried weight. It was more than a simple farewell. It was a declaration that survival was paramount and there was no room for failure. These words encapsulated the Spartan ideal. Warriors didn't retreat, they didn't surrender, and they certainly didn't give up. It was a psychological tool, a powerful reminder of what was at stake. The expectation of this kind of bravery and honor was ingrained deeply in Spartan society, and the women's influence was central to shaping this mentality. Spartan women weren't just influential in their homes, they were influential in Spartan society as a whole. Women in Sparta held significant power within the family and clan structure. They were not merely figures who managed households. They had authority, owned property, and held financial leverage. Some Spartan women even wielded political power. The Council of Spartan Women was sought by leaders in both war and governance. These women weren't just background figures. They were active participants in shaping Spartan leadership, providing guidance and strategy for military and political matters. Without their input, Sparta's leadership would have been far less effective. A lot of history overlooks the role of women in warfare, but Spartan women's influence was fundamental to the success of Sparta's military culture. Their support wasn't just emotional, it was strategic. Spartan women didn't just wait at home for news of the battle. They were at the center of preserving and passing down military traditions. They were the keepers of history, ensuring that Spartan warriors and their families understood the legacy of the city-state. They were instrumental in maintaining the warrior culture, helping to reinforce Sparta's identity as a militaristic society. Through their teachings and involvement, Spartan women ensured that the Spartan military tradition would continue for generations. But Spartan women weren't just about maintaining traditions, they were about building the future. When it came time for a child to be born, Spartan women had a critical role in shaping the next generation of warriors. Spartan birth rituals were harsh and focused on survival of the fittest. If a child was born weak or unfit, it was common practice to leave the infant to die. This harsh method ensured that only the strongest children would survive to become soldiers. Women were not only responsible for raising these future warriors, they were the ones who made the first critical decisions about whether a child had the strength to survive Sparta's grueling warrior training. The survival of the state rested on the strength of its future warriors, and Spartan women were the architects of this future. The independence of Spartan women was a key element in Sparta's military strategy. Spartan women were not confined by traditional gender roles. They managed households, controlled wealth, and held power in their communities. This independence was crucial to Sparta's military success because it allowed Spartan men to focus entirely on battle, knowing that their homes and families were in capable hands. Spartan women's participation in all aspects of Spartan life gave the men more time to perfect their and strategies. This unique dynamic between men and women in Spartan society created a powerful, unstoppable force, one that made Sparta a dominant military power for centuries. In many ways, Spartan women were the unsung heroes behind Sparta's military might. Their strength, influence, and leadership helped define the Spartan warrior ethos and ensured the survival of Spartan societies. Spartan women were integral not only to the success of their warriors, but also to the preservation of Sparta's legacy as one of the most feared and respected military forces in the ancient world. What if I told you that Spartan women, not just the warriors, had a significant role in shaping the course of battle? It's a story you've never heard before. Imagine a society where women didn't just support warriors. They changed the very fabric of warfare itself. Most people think Spartan women were just wives and mothers, but the truth is far more unexpected. Let's uncover their power. When we think about Spartan society, it's easy to picture the iconic warriors in their battle gear, fighting relentlessly on the front lines. But did you know that Spartan women had just as much influence on the success of those battles as the men who fought them? These women weren't just homebound figures waiting for their husbands and sons to return. They played a key role in shaping the very foundation of Sparta's military might. Most people assume that Spartan women stayed at home, raised children, and quietly managed the household. But what if I told you that they were far more involved in the culture of war than you might expect? Spartan women were expected to be physically strong, both in body and mind. From a young age, they were trained in physical fitness, ensuring that they were not just caregivers, but tough and resilient members of society. They were the backbone of Spartan culture, which was based on strength and discipline. They were responsible for maintaining Spartan values in times of peace, and were just as instrumental in Sparta's military identity as their male counterparts. Spartan women weren't just standing by while the men went to war. They were part of a larger military effort, ensuring that the next generation of warriors was ready to fight. They played an active role in training their sons and were heavily involved in teaching the Spartan ideals of bravery, honor, and resilience. Their influence stretched far beyond the home, ensuring that Sparta's warrior culture would live on. But their impact didn't stop there. They were also deeply involved in the preservation and transmission of Sparta's military traditions. So, were Spartan women ever soldiers? While it's true that Spartan women didn't formally fight in large-scale battles, their role in combat preparation was crucial. They trained alongside men, learning combat skills and understanding the strategies of war. Spartan women had the same physical training as the men, and as a result, were just as capable of contributing to the war effort. They weren't just warriors in name, they were warriors in spirit, ensuring the survival and strength of Sparta during times of battle. But how did Spartan women influence the warriors themselves? While Spartan soldiers fought on the battlefield, their strength and resolve were fueled by the emotional support of their women. Spartan women had an unshakable belief in their ideals, and they passed that on to their sons. They encouraged their men to fight bravely, often with motivational speeches that reminded them of the Spartan values of honor and duty. The emotional connection between Spartan soldiers and their women was a driving force in their success. It was this connection that kept the warriors focused on victory, even in the face of overwhelming odds. One of the most famous sayings associated with Spartan women is the phrase, "Come back with your shield or on it." This wasn't just a simple expression. It was a mantra that carried deep significance in Spartan society. It represented the Spartan belief that warriors didn't retreat, didn't give up, and didn't return without victory. Spartan women weren't afraid to push their men toward greatness, even if it meant making tough, brutal decisions. This saying was more than a farewell. It was a statement of survival, honor, and commitment. It shaped the mindset of Spartan soldiers and helped them maintain their focus on victory, no matter the cost. But Spartan women didn't just influence the soldiers. They had a hand in shaping the very politics and society of Sparta itself. Women in Sparta were powerful figures within their families and communities. They controlled wealth, owned property, and held significant sway in political matters. Spartan women were not just secondary figures in the household. They were active participants in the political landscape. They advised military leaders, helped guide decisions on war and governance, and ensured that the Spartan ideals were upheld in every aspect of society. While Spartan men were off at war, the women were responsible for maintaining the home front. This allowed the men to focus entirely on their training and battle strategies. But more than that, it allowed the women to manage the critical elements of Spartan society. Their independence ensured that Sparta's military system ran smoothly, and this partnership between men and women in Spartan society was integral to the city-state's success. The emotional strength of Spartan women was just as important as their physical strength. When a Spartan warrior fell in battle, it wasn't just the soldier's loss, it was the loss of a member of the Spartan community. The women, particularly the widows, were revered for their strength and stoicism. Rather than mourning, these women continued continued to manage their households and raise their children to become the next generation of warriors. They embodied the Spartan values of endurance and resilience, ensuring that Sparta's legacy would continue. In many ways, Spartan women were the unsung heroes of Sparta's military might. Their emotional strength, leadership, and unwavering commitment to Spartan ideals were just as important to Sparta's success as the warriors on the battlefield. They were the keepers of Spartan traditions, the ones who ensured that the city-state's warrior culture would survive for generations. Without them, Sparta's legacy as a military powerhouse may not have endured. Spartan women also played a vital role in shaping the future of Sparta's warriors. The Spartan birth ritual was harsh and unforgiving. Only the strongest children were raised to become warriors. If a child was deemed unfit for Spartan life, it was common practice for the infant to be left to die. This brutal method ensured that only the strongest would survive and become soldiers. Spartan women were responsible for overseeing this process and ensuring that the next generation of warriors was ready to face the challenges of battle. The influence of Spartan women didn't stop with raising warriors. Spartan women also had a hand in shaping the future of Sparta's military strategy. They were not bound by traditional gender roles. They controlled wealth, managed households, and played a key role in the strategic decisions that guided Sparta's military efforts. Their involvement in all aspects of Spartan life allowed the men to focus on perfecting their battle tactics, knowing that their homes and families were in capable hands. This unique partnership between the sexes helped create a Spartan military machine that was unmatched in its time. Spartan women's influence wasn't limited to their own societies. Their independence and strength became a symbol for other Greek city-states. Many city-states began to adopt Spartan customs and recognized the value of strong, independent women. Spartan women became icons of power in ancient Greece, helping to shift the perception of women in society. Their influence extended beyond the borders of Sparta, and they played a role in shaping Greek society as a whole. The true secret to Sparta's military success was not just the men who fought, it was the women who supported them. Spartan women provided critical emotional, strategic, and logistical support that allowed the warriors to focus entirely on battles. They were the bedrock of Spartan society, ensuring that Sparta's military tradition survived and thrived. Without them, Sparta's legendary military might may never have reached the heights that it did. In the end, Spartan women weren't just supporters of the warrior class. They were warriors in their own right. Their strength, resilience, and emotional power shaped the course of battles and ensured that Spartan ideals would endure for generations. Spartan women left behind a legacy that continues to be a topic of discussion and discovery. Their role in shaping Sparta's military success challenges modern perceptions of gender roles and demonstrates the incredible influence that women had in shaping history. How did Spartan women influence the entire Greek world? It might surprise you to know that their power and independence had a much wider impact than the warriors you usually associate with Sparta. The strength and influence of Spartan women was a force that not only shaped the warriors of Sparta, but also had a ripple effect on neighboring Greek city-states. For centuries, Sparta was known for its disciplined warrior culture, but most people overlook the fact that Spartan women were at the heart of this unique society. They weren't just standing by at home, waiting for their husbands to return from war. These women were active participants in the maintenance of Spartan strength, and they played a critical role in both everyday life and wartime strategy. Their independence, political power, and military influence were not only admired within their own society, but also set a precedent for women in other parts of Greece. To understand their influence, let's take a look at how Spartan women's power spread far beyond Sparta itself. While we typically associate military might with the warriors who fought on the battlefield, Spartan women were just as integral to the city-state's success. They weren't just managing households, they were actively involved in Sparta's political decisions and military strategy. Spartan women became a symbol of the power and autonomy that women could possess, challenging the traditional gender roles that defined most Greek city-states. Their ability to control property, influence politics, and take on leadership roles became something other city-states looked up to, and in some cases, adopted. One of the noteworthy convicts, some sold for whiles, as the properties have been retained. But in Sparta, women were trained in physical fitness and were given the same education as men in many cases. They were strong, independent, and valued for their contributions to society, not just their ability to bear children or maintain a home. Interestingly, Spartan women had the ability to own and manage property, which was nearly unheard of in other Greek city-states. This control over wealth allowed them to exert considerable influence over political matters. Women like Gorgo, the wife of King Leonidas, were often consulted for their advice on military and political issues. In fact, Spartan women's involvement in the political sphere often surpassed that of women in any other part of Greece. But their influence wasn't just confined to political maneuvering. Spartan women's ability to inspire men to fight, to maintain morale during times of war, and to manage the home front meant that they were key contributors to Sparta's military prowess. Their strength was a silent but powerful force that carried through every aspect of Spartan life. When soldiers returned from battle, they were greeted by Spartan women who reminded them of the importance of honor and duty. Women would often say things like, "Come back with your shield or on it," a saying that reinforced the unrelenting Spartan drive for victory and survival. Their influence on other Greek cities city-states was significant. Spartan women became a model of what women could achieve when they were given the autonomy to manage both their personal lives and their society's needs. This influence was noticed by other Greek city-states, many of which adopted some Spartan customs regarding women's roles. Spartan women's control of property and political involvement set a precedent for the women of other Greek cities and helped to shift the perception of women in the ancient world. But there's something most people don't know about Spartan women's impact. It wasn't just about political or economic power, it was about shaping the next generation of warriors. Spartan women were tasked with ensuring that only the strongest children survived to become soldiers. At birth, infants were inspected to determine their strength. If a child was deemed weak, it was left. This brutal process ensured that only the strongest children were raised to fight in Sparta's legendary military. And it was Spartan women who ensured that the birth and early childhood of these future warriors were handled according to Spartan law and custom. Now let's think about this. If Spartan women were so influential in shaping the next generation of soldiers, could their actions have been as important as the men who fought on the front lines? The answer is yes. Without the psychological and emotional foundation laid by these women, the men of Sparta may not have had the same level of resilience and determination. When just nurturing warriors, they were actively creating the environment that made Spartan military success possible. And there's something else you may not expect. Spartan women didn't just hold down the home front, they often held leadership roles in the absence of their husbands and sons. When the men of Sparta went to war, Spartan women were left to manage the household, but their power went beyond mere domestic duties. They had the authority to control resources, manage slaves, and influence military and political decisions. In fact, some Spartan women even played roles in warfare itself. Their leadership was a reflection of their larger role in Spartan society. They weren't merely bystanders. They were active participants in the shaping of Sparta's destiny. This influence wasn't just about keeping things in order while the men were away. Spartan women were vital to maintaining the culture of honor that pervaded every aspect of Spartan life. They reinforced the idea of honor and duty, especially for soldiers who were preparing for battle. Their influence on men's behavior extended beyond the battlefield, shaping how soldiers thought about courage, loyalty, and their duty to Sparta. Perhaps the most shocking thing about Spartan women is how little credit they've received for their contributions to Sparta's military success. We often hear about the heroic men who fought in epic battles like Thermopylae, but the truth is that without Spartan women, the soldiers wouldn't have had the same unshakable resolve. They were the unsung heroes who ensured that Spartan warriors not only survived but thrived in battle. What many don't realize is that the legacy of Spartan women is not just about their role in Sparta. It's about how their example influenced the rest of the Greek world by setting a standard for strength, leadership, and autonomy. Spartan women challenged the traditional gender norms of their time. They proved that women could be just as powerful and influential as men, not just in the home, but in society, politics, and war. In conclusion, the lasting impact of Spartan women on both Sparta and the Greek world cannot be overstated. They were the unsung heroes behind the warriors of Sparta, shaping not only their society but the course of history. Through their strength, intelligence, and influence, they left a legacy that has continued to inspire and challenge our perceptions of women in history. The question remains, was Sparta's military success really due to the men who fought, or was it something more? The answer may surprise you, as the true secret behind Sparta's legendary military might lies in the often overlooked contributions of Spartan women. You see, Spartan women weren't merely spectators in a male-dominated world. They were key players in the cultural and psychological foundation that made Sparta an unstoppable military force. Now, while men went off to battle, it was Spartan women who provided the emotional and strategic backbone that allowed Sparta to dominate its enemies for centuries. Spartan men may have fought the battles, but Spartan women prepared them for war, ensured their survival, and kept the home front running smoothly. For centuries, Spartan society has been viewed through the lens of its warriors, the brave men who fought in the heat of battle. But few consider the psychological strength that Spartan women instilled in them. These women weren't just concerned with domestic duties, they were the emotional rock that motivated Spartan soldiers to fight with unwavering courage. The warriors may have had their swords, but it was the words and actions of Spartan women that shaped their resolve. A fascinating aspect of Spartan society is how it merged the roles of men and women. Most people think that Sparta's military success was primarily the result of its warriors' unmatched skill in battle. However, the reality is far more complex. Spartan women were directly responsible for training future warriors, ensuring that only the strongest children survived to become soldiers. When a Spartan child was born, it wasn't just the mother who raised it. The state closely monitored the birth, and if the child was deemed unfit, it was left to die. This harsh method of ensuring only the strongest children were raised contributed to Sparta's unrivaled strength. But their influence didn't end there. Spartan women were also involved in preserving the warrior culture that was so central to Sparta's identity. They were keepers of Spartan history, passing down stories of past victories and the military code that governed Spartan life. It wasn't just the men who fought battles. Spartan women taught their children to live by the same rigorous standards, ensuring the continuation of Spartan traditions. Without their active involvement in preserving these customs, the warrior spirit of Sparta might have faded into history. While women in other Greek city-states were generally confined to domestic roles, Spartan women had a much more public presence. Many Spartan women owned land, which gave them control over wealth and influence in politics. This independence allowed Spartan men to focus entirely on battle, knowing that their homes and families were in capable hands. This unique dynamic between men and women in Spartan society created a partnership that was critical to Sparta's success. Spartan women weren't just managing households. They were actively supporting the military machine by managing resources, providing counsel, and ensuring that their soldiers returned home victorious. The power of Spartan women didn't just stay within the confines of Sparta. Their independence and strength became a model for other Greek city-states. Women in places like Athens looked to Spartan women as an example of what women could achieve if given the freedom to take on more than just domestic roles. The control Spartan women had over their property and the influence they held in politics was unmatched in the ancient world. Other city-states began to adopt some of Sparta's customs, allowing women to take on more leadership roles and to own land. The impact of Spartan women on Greek society was profound, and their example helped challenge traditional gender roles across the Greek world. But it's not just about politics, land, or resources. The psychological and emotional strength of Spartan women was the true secret to Sparta's military success. In times of war, when men went off to fight, Spartan women ensured that the warriors' spirits were high. They were masters at maintaining morale, providing emotional support, and encouraging their soldiers to fight with honor. While men fought with swords, Spartan women fought with words, inspiring soldiers to give their best in battle. The role of Spartan women in shaping military strategy is something that's often overlooked. While women didn't directly fight in large-scale battles, their role in the preparation for battle was undeniable. Spartan women were trained in physical fitness and combat skills, just like the men. Though they didn't participate in the actual fighting, they helped shape the strategy and kept the warriors in peak physical condition. Spartan women were an integral part of the military effort. They were the unsung strategists who ensured that the men went into battle at their best. Another key contribution of Spartan women to military success was their ability to hold down the home front. Spartan society was built on the idea that the warriors would go to battle and return victorious. But that was only possible because of the women who ran Sparta when the men were away. They managed the household, controlled wealth, and ensured that everything was in order, which allowed the men to focus entirely on war. The unique balance between men and women in Spartan society created a well-oiled machine that supported military success. The role of Spartan women far beyond domestic duties. They were political and military strategists, warriors in their own right, and the emotional support system that kept the soldiers fighting. Their contributions were integral to Sparta's success on the battlefield, and without them, Sparta may never have achieved the legendary status it holds in history. It's time we recognized the women behind the warriors and understood that Sparta's military success wasn't just about the men who fought. It was about the women who supported them, inspired them, and ensured their survival. In conclusion, the true secret to Sparta's military success lies in the unique partnership between men and women. Spartan women were not just passive supporters of their warrior husbands. They were active participants in the cultural, emotional, and strategic foundation that made Sparta the most powerful military force of the ancient world. By challenging traditional gender roles, taking on leadership positions, and shaping the next generation of warriors, Spartan women proved that their strength was just as critical to Sparta's success as the strength of the men who fought in battle. The death of a Spartan warrior was inevitable. In a society that glorified strength and sacrifice, soldiers fought knowing that their lives were expendable for the good of Sparta. But when a Spartan warrior fell, his widow didn't mourn the way other women did in ancient Greece. She didn't weep publicly or beg for mercy. In fact, she didn't show any weakness at all. Why? Because Spartan widows were expected to embody the very ideals their husbands died for: strength, stoicism, and the unwavering commitment to the Spartan way of life. These women were seen as living symbols of the Spartan ideal of endurance, showing the world that the Spartan spirit never faltered, even in the face of loss. And that was precisely the point. Spartan women, especially widows, played a crucial role in keeping the Spartan legacy alive. They were expected to remain strong, just as their husbands had done on the battlefield. Their emotional resilience not only helped sustain the family, but it also reinforced the strength of Spartan society as a whole. They didn't just keep the memory of their fallen warriors alive. They continued to raise children who would one day take their place in battle. But how did this unwavering strength contribute to the Spartan military? The answer lies in the very nature of Sparta's military culture. Spartan soldiers fought for the survival of their people, their culture, and their families. It was a belief system forged from an unbreakable bond between men and women. Men fought to protect their homes, and women ensured that home was a place of strength and honor. In the face of grief, Spartan widows didn't surrender to emotions. They channeled their sorrow into motivation. They reminded their children and the community that their sacrifice was not in vain, and that the fight for Sparta's future would continue no matter the cost. The image of Spartan widows, stoic and resolute, is an integral part of the larger Spartan narrative. It's easy to think of Spartan society as one that was centered solely around warriors and soldiers, but the truth is, without the strength of these women, Sparta would not have been able to sustain its military power. The Spartan widow represented the enduring spirit spirit of Sparta, the idea that even in death, a warrior's legacy would be upheld by those left behind. But what is it that makes Spartan widows so unique in the context of ancient Greek society? In most Greek city-states, when a soldier died, his widow would go through a typical mourning process, which might include wearing dark clothing, wailing in public, and participating in rituals that symbolize the loss. In Sparta, however, the focus was not on the loss, but on the continuation of the Spartan ideal. Widows were expected to stay strong, not only for themselves, but also for their families. In this sense, Spartan widows were active participants in the Spartan military machine, as they helped raise the next generation of warriors, ensuring the cycle of strength and honor would continue. While this might seem harsh, it was a reflection of the Spartan mindset, where emotions were often seen as a weakness that could undermine the mission. Spartan society didn't have the luxury of indulgence in grief. Every emotion was funneled into the greater purpose of maintaining Sparta's power and influence, and the widows, in their strength, became central to this mission. Their endurance became a model for their sons and daughters, teaching them the importance of perseverance, duty, and sacrifice. Spartan widows were more than just survivors. They were guardians of Spartan ideals, ensuring that the next generation would not forget the sacrifices made for their society. In a way, they were the ultimate defenders of Sparta's future, protecting not just the warrior's memory, but also the very foundations of Spartan society. Without them, the Spartan way of life would have been harder to maintain, and the future of the warriors would have been uncertain. While most of the world sees Spartan warriors as the key to Sparta's success, it is essential to recognize the pivotal role played by their widow. The Spartan widow wasn't just a grieving wife, she was a symbol of resilience, an unwavering pillar of strength who upheld the ideals of Sparta through her actions and character. In many ways, Spartan widows exemplify the Spartan way of life, a life where emotional strength and stoic endurance were just as crucial as physical prowess in battle. The image of a Spartan widow may not be the first thing that comes to mind when we think of Sparta, but their impact on Spartan military culture is undeniable. Their strength, their perseverance, and their refusal to succumb to grief were a testament to the power of Spartan women. They ensured that the memory of fallen warriors lived on, and that the next generation of Spartans was raised to fight, honor, and protect their lands. The Spartan widow may not have fought on the battlefield, but she played a crucial role in keeping Sparta's warrior tradition alive. Without her, Sparta might have never been able to achieve the legendary status it holds today. In conclusion, Spartan widows embody the core of Spartan strength, endurance, honor, and the refusal to be broken by adversity. In their stoic silence, they taught the world that true strength lies not in the victory of battle, but in the perseverance to continue the fight long after the battle is over. The legacy of Spartan widows is just as vital to the Spartan story as the warriors who fought, and their role in maintaining the Spartan ideal cannot be understated. Spartan women were not merely the background figures that many think of when we hear about ancient warriors. They were also powerhouses in their own right, deeply integrated into the military success of Sparta. The myths surrounding Spartan women often paint them as passive observers in the shadows of the men who fought. However, the truth is much more complex and empowering. We've all heard the stories about how Spartan men were some of the fiercest warriors of the ancient world. But what if I told you that the success of their campaigns, the fortitude of their armies, and even their mental toughness were often shaped and reinforced by the women in their lives? Spartan women didn't just stay home while the men fought. They were integral to the strength of Spartan society, especially in preserving the warrior ethos that drove their military success. A key aspect of this influence lies in how Spartan women were portrayed in myths and legends. These myths often gloss over or completely misrepresent the true role that women played in Spartan society. For example, you've probably heard the stories of Spartan mothers telling their sons, "Come back with your shield," or "On it." These words weren't just an expression of maternal pride or an encouraging sentiment before a battle. They encapsulated the very essence of Spartan society, where honor and strength were everything. But did the myths about Spartan women truly capture their significance, or did they downplay their power? It's time to dig deeper and separate the fact from the fiction. In the popular myths, Spartan women were often portrayed as mere symbols of Spartan masculinity, strong and capable, but without a direct role in the strategies that led to victory. However, this simplistic view fails to capture the depth of their influence. Spartan women were highly educated, trained in physical fitness, and encouraged to be strong, not only to endure hardships, but to participate in a broader role in their community. They weren't just trained to manage households, they were prepared to wield power in Spartan society, and many did. One of the most significant aspects of Spartan women's roles in society was their control over land and wealth. In Sparta, women had the right to own property, something that was quite rare in ancient Greece. In fact, they were often wealthier than their male counterparts, which gave them a level of influence that was uncommon in other Greek city-states. Spartan women held considerable political and social power, especially in terms of managing estates and determining the future of Spartan bloodlines by raising strong sons. Their actions, decisions, and even their ability to influence Sparta's political structures often determined the outcome of conflicts and military strategies. While the male warriors were on the front lines, the Spartan women were at home ensuring that Spartan ideals and the warrior culture were passed down to the next generation. This ability to influence the future of Sparta through the education of their children cannot be overstated. started. Spartan women were the ones who raised the warriors, instilled discipline in the children, and even ensured that the strongest children survived, a practice we see in the harsh infant inspection rituals. These women weren't passive bystanders. They were essential architects of the Spartan military machine. Moreover, these women were also instrumental in defining the Spartan identity itself. In Spartan society, women had a unique cultural status. Their role wasn't just about producing the next generation of soldiers. It was about reinforcing the very concept of Sparta. Spartan women were responsible for shaping the morale of the entire society. When warriors returned victorious, the praises were often reserved for them. But when they failed, it was the women who would carry that burden. In the Spartan military, a loss wasn't just a loss for the soldiers. It was a loss for the entire community, and the women were there, often at the heart of the recovery. Spartan widows, for example, were seen as symbols of the ongoing strength of Sparta. These women were expected to show resilience, to carry on, and to raise future warriors who would never forget the sacrifices of those before them. They were the backbone of Spartan continuity, ensuring that the warrior ethos endured. But the myths, the legends, and the romanticized version of Spartan life often gloss over this critical role. They romanticize the warriors, but fail to give credit to the women who were the true enforcers of Spartan ideals. Spartan women didn't just follow the rules, they helped write them. They were not just supporters of warriors, they were the very foundation of Spartan military success. It's a rare insight into the world of Spartan women, but their impact on Spartan military history is undeniable. They were not just the mothers, wives, or daughters of warriors. They were political powerhouses, social architects, and the emotional core of Spartan society. The mythic version of Spartan life may be compelling, but the truth about Spartan women is far richer and more powerful. These women didn't just stand by their men, they stood at the very center of Spartan culture, shaping its destiny with their strength, resilience, and intelligence. In reality, Spartan women did far more than simply manage homes or produce warriors. They wielded influence over the city-state's military successes, ensured the survival of Spartan values, and even helped in shaping future generations. Their influence spread beyond Sparta's borders and impacted the culture of other Greek city-states, leading to a greater recognition of the power women could wield in shaping society. The myths may have gotten some things wrong, but their true legacy is a testament to the lasting impact Spartan women had on the ancient world. In myths and stories, Spartan women are often seen as mere bystanders to the fierce warriors that defined their society. But the truth is far from simple. The real story? Spartan women were central figures in the very strength of Sparta, holding the fabric of the military society together in ways that many overlook. While Spartan men may have been the warriors on the battlefield, the real secret to Sparta's power lay with the women who helped shape, sustain, and drive forward the warrior culture. Most people think Spartan women stayed behind, managing the home while the men fought, but this is far from the truth. In fact, Spartan women didn't just exist on the sidelines of Spartan military prowess. They were actively shaping that very prowess from the ground up. Not only were they trained in the same physical fitness regimes as men, but they also held critical roles in Spartan society, ensuring its survival during times of war. They weren't just guardians of the home front, they were the pillars of Spartan strength. It may surprise you to know that Spartan women were often more than just wives and mothers. They were leaders in their own right, responsible for decisions that affected the entire community, even including military strategy. While the idea of women fighting alongside men on the battlefield is often mythologized, Spartan women were still deeply involved in the preparation and psychological support of the warriors. They trained to be strong, both physically and mentally, and were expected to contribute to their society's survival in times of crisis. Think about this. When a Spartan man returned from battle victorious, he did so not just for himself, but for the society that his wife, mother, or sister had helped to build. Their influence was everywhere. Spartan women were the backbone of Spartan culture, pushing the warriors to greatness, teaching their children Spartan values, and ensuring that their city-state would endure. But what is often missed is how Spartan women influenced not just the men they loved, but the men who would go on to influence all of Greece. Spartan women held power that was unique for the time. They were able to manage estates, control wealth, and even offer counsel on governance. Imagine that, a society where women's voices mattered in matters of war and politics, and where their ability to lead was as celebrated as the warriors on the front lines. The power of Spartan women wasn't just a byproduct of their society, it was integral to Sparta's very existence and success. And speaking of power, one of the most underappreciated aspects of Spartan women's legacy is their role in the emotional and psychological support they gave to the warriors. When we think of battle readiness, we usually think of swords, shields, and strategy. But Spartan women understood something fundamental about war that many men didn't. Battle is as much about the mind as it is about the body. Spartan women didn't just nurse wounds after battle. They ensured that the warriors remained mentally prepared, constantly reinforcing the ideals of honor, strength, and victory. This emotional power extended beyond speeches or motivations. It was ingrained in Spartan society. The famous saying, "Come back with your shield or on it," is often attributed to Spartan women, and it perfectly illustrates the mindset that they instilled in their men. This wasn't just about ensuring victory, it was about instilling a sense of duty so powerful that warriors would be willing to die for the cause. However, the truth truth behind these sayings is often reduced to a simple, one-dimensional story of Spartan strength. In reality, these women were complex figures who balanced fierce warrior ideals with a deep understanding of society's needs. Their influence stretched into the governance of Sparta itself. Women could own land, which in a time when most Greek women were powerless, set Spartan women apart. This wealth wasn't just for personal gain. It was often used for political leverage, further shaping Spartan decisions and policies, especially in times of war. Let's shift gears for a moment. Think about this. Did Spartan women play a direct role in determining the outcome of battles? Of course, they didn't wield swords in the heat of combat, but they were key figures in preparing the men who fought. They made sure that the warrior ethos survived, that their sons were ready to fight and die for Sparta's success. They helped decide which warriors lived or died through the selection process, and they taught their children to uphold Spartan ideals long before those children picked up a spear. And what you might find most surprising, however, is the fact that Spartan women were integral in the aftermath of the battle. After a grueling, bloody fight, it wasn't just the warriors who celebrated victory, it was the women who carried the community through the recovery. They ensured the wounded were cared for, the morale was maintained, and that supplies were replenished. Without these post-battle contributions, the Spartan military machine would have faltered. The warriors may have fought, but it was the women who made sure they could fight again. Now, let's look at how Spartan women's influence extended beyond their borders. The myth of Spartan women as passive figures in Greek society doesn't hold up when you examine the history closely. Older Greek city-states noticed Spartan women's strength and began to model their own practices after Sparta's. The idea of women owning property and having a say in political matters didn't exist in other parts of Greece, but Sparta showed that it could work. Other cities started to recognize the power of Spartan women, and in turn, this helped shift the perception of women in ancient Greek society. This brings us to the biggest question of all: how much of Sparta's military success can truly be attributed to the warriors themselves? The truth is, Spartan men may have been the face of military might, but the true secret to Sparta's success was the strength, intellect, and emotional resilience of Spartan women. When we think about Sparta's legendary warriors, we must also think about the women who made them who they were. The mothers, wives, and daughters who played an essential part in building the strongest military society the ancient world had ever seen. The myths about Spartan women are powerful, but they often obscure the reality. These women weren't just passive figures. They were warriors in their own right, contributing to the survival and success of Sparta in ways that are only now being fully appreciated. Spartan women have long been seen as quiet figures, living in the shadows of their famous warrior husbands and sons. However, what if I told you that they were far more than just wives and mothers? What if their influence on the battlefield wasn't just limited to managing the home front or raising children? In fact, Spartan women were central to the success of Sparta, playing an instrumental role in shaping its military culture, strategy, and legacy. Their contributions went far beyond anything most people have ever been told. When we think of Sparta, we usually picture fierce warriors, with men leading the charge into battle. But behind these warriors, Spartan women were the true architects of their success. They weren't confined to the home, managing only the household. No, they were crucial to Sparta's survival and its victory. How? By training their bodies to be as strong as the men's, by teaching their children the Spartan values, and by providing the emotional and strategic support that was needed for the warriors to excel. Spartan women didn't just wait for their men to return from battle. They were warriors in their own right. Though not formally soldiers, they were trained to defend their society when needed. Some of them trained with weapons, learning the skills necessary to take part in the war effort. While the idea of women fighting alongside men in major battles is more myth than fact, their roles in small skirmishes and their overall contributions to the Spartan military strategy were undeniable. But how did they influence the men in their lives? How did their emotional and mental strength shape the Spartan warriors? In a society that valued strength above all else, Spartan women were the backbone of Spartan resilience. Their unshakable belief in Spartan ideals, honor, bravery, loyalty, was instilled in their sons and husbands from an early age. They were the ones pushing men to be victorious, reminding them of the greater cause and the legacy they were defending. Their strength wasn't just physical, it was psychological, and this gave the Spartan soldiers the emotional drive they needed to fight fiercely. Many people believe that words have little power in war, but Spartan women proved this idea wrong. One of the most famous Spartan sayings, "Come back with your shield or on it," was passed down from mothers, wives, and sisters. These words weren't just meant to encourage, they were a demand for survival. Spartan women didn't allow weakness. They expected nothing less than total commitment to the Spartan cause. Their directness, their words, were designed to instill an unrelenting drive in their men. They knew that survival wasn't optional. It was a matter of pride, honor, and duty. But these women weren't just emotionally tough. They were politically and economically powerful too. Spartan women could own land, which was a remarkable privilege in ancient Greece. This economic power gave them a unique voice in Spartan society. Political leaders sought their counsel because of their wisdom and influence. The women weren't just passive figures. They were active participants in Sparta's governance and military decisions. They weren't just supporting the warriors. They were shaping the course of the war itself, providing strategic advice, and ensuring that Spartan policies aligned with their warrior culture. In times of war, the emotional strength strength of Spartan women became even more critical. When Spartan men went to battle, the women were left behind to manage the household, the estate, and perhaps most importantly, the emotional aftermath of battle. If a Spartan warrior fell in battle, it was not just the loss of a soldier, it was a loss that had to be dealt with by the entire community. Spartan widows didn't have the luxury of mourning for long. They were expected to remain strong, managing the household and raising their children to be warriors. The widow's role wasn't to grieve, it was to continue Spartan traditions and raise the next generation of warriors. This stoicism was seen as a symbol of strength, endurance, and dedication to the Spartan cause. Perhaps most importantly, Spartan women helped shape the next generation of warriors. When a baby was born, it was inspected by Spartan authorities to ensure it was strong enough to survive Spartan training. If a child was deemed weak, it was left to die. But the women's role in the birthing process didn't end there. They were responsible for ensuring that only the strongest children were raised to become soldiers. This harsh system ensured that the Spartan military remained strong, battle-ready, and capable of defending its way of life. In addition to raising warriors, Spartan women were key to preserving Spartan culture and military traditions. The stories of Sparta's victories, the tales of past warriors, and the warrior code were passed down to the next generation by Spartan women. These women ensured that the military traditions of Sparta were upheld, and their teaching ensured that future generations would be ready to carry the Spartan legacy forward. Yes, without the women of Sparta, the city-state's warrior ethos would have faltered, and its military traditions might have been lost. Let's not forget the impact Spartan women had outside of Sparta. Their strength, independence, and influence didn't just stay within the city-state's borders, they spread throughout Greece. Other city-states took notice of the power that Spartan women wielded, and many began to adopt some Spartan customs regarding women's roles. Spartan women became a symbol of female power in ancient Greece, and their legacy helped to shift the perception of women in society at large. But the biggest question remains, what was the secret to Sparta's success? Was it the men who fought on the front lines, or was it the women who supported them? The answer lies in the unique partnership between Spartan men and women. Without the emotional, strategic, and physical support of the women, the Spartan military might not have achieved its legendary status. The true strength of Sparta came not just from the warriors, but from the women who helped shape the warriors, who prepared them, supported them, and ensured that they remained battle-ready at all times. When we think of Spartan women, it's easy to picture passive figures supporting the men who fought for their society. But the truth is much more complex. Spartan women were not only equal to men in strength, resilience, and influence, they were indispensable to the survival and success of Sparta. Their legacy, often overlooked, is one of power, endurance, and strength. It's time we re-examine the role of Spartan women and acknowledge their contributions to one of the most powerful military societies in history. How did Spartan women manage to defy traditional gender roles and become more than just silent figures in the background? What made them so integral to the survival and military strength of Sparta? These women didn't just sit at home while the men went to war. They actively shaped the course of history through their contributions, influence, and unyielding strength. The very fabric of Spartan society depended on them, but this is a side of Spartan life that's rarely told. It's easy to assume that Spartan society, with its strict warrior code, didn't leave much room for women outside the household, but the reality is far more complex. Spartan women were trained to be physically strong, emotionally resilient, and intellectually sharp. Their education didn't just focus on domesticity. It was about preparing them to uphold Spartan values, raise warriors, and even influence battle strategy. Spartan women were not just caretakers. They were pillars that held up the entire warrior ethos of Sparta. Most people think Spartan women only took part in activities like raising children or managing households, but the truth is that they played an active role in shaping military outcomes. Spartan society put women through rigorous training, focusing not only on their physical strength but also on mental fortitude. They were expected to be as strong as their men in body and mind, as their role was essential to maintaining the Spartan military culture. One of the most controversial aspects of Spartan women's strength was how they contributed to military strategy, not directly in battle but in shaping the warriors themselves. Through their influence, Spartan women instilled a sense of discipline, honor, and strength in their sons. They held men accountable for their courage and commitment to the Spartan way. And it wasn't just their sons who felt the weight of Spartan women's words, it was their husbands and the warriors they inspired. "Come back with your shield or on it" was not just a saying, it was an order for survival, a mindset passed down through generations. Spartan women weren't afraid to be harsh or demanding because they understood that the stakes were always high. How did they manage to break free from traditional gender expectations? Spartan women were not confined to the roles that other Greek women were restricted to. They had the freedom to own property, influence political decisions, and participate in discussions that could shape Spartan policy. This independence was central to Sparta's military machine. Men went off to war. The women didn't just manage the home. They were powerful figures who held their own. They worked behind the scenes to make sure that the men were battle-ready, knowing that their contributions were just as important in ensuring Sparta's military might. Now, let's talk about Spartan women's education, a key element of their influence on Sparta's military prowess. The education of Spartan women wasn't just about domestic skills. It was about preparing them to be strong, strategic, and capable leaders in their own right. These women were trained in philosophy, philosophy, combat, and leadership. They learned how to think critically, make decisions under pressure, and inspire others, skills that would later benefit Sparta in times of war. While their physical training was crucial, their education in philosophy and leadership allowed Spartan women to contribute far beyond traditional roles. They became the intellectual and emotional support behind Sparta's military success, ensuring that the warriors weren't just skilled fighters, they were ideologically committed to the cause. This mental fortitude was what set Sparta apart from other Greek city-states. Perhaps the most overlooked aspect of Spartan women's legacy is their role in preparing the next generation of warriors. The birth of a Spartan child was a moment of profound significance. It wasn't just about the arrival of a baby, it was about the creation of the next soldier. Spartan women had to ensure that only the strongest children survived. Babies who were deemed weak were discarded. Spartan society demanded strength, and Spartan women were the gatekeepers of that strength. But this wasn't just about physical strength. It was about preparing children to embody the ideals of Sparta. These women were not just mothers. They were the architects of the Spartan warrior spirit. Their role in shaping the next generation of soldiers ensured that Sparta remained strong, no matter the odds. In a society where survival was never guaranteed, this harsh but necessary practice ensured that the warriors would always be battle-ready. What's even more surprising is how Spartan women contributed to the recovery process after battle. The battle didn't end when the warriors returned. Spartan women were crucial in restoring the strength of their warriors and keeping the military machine in motion. They nursed the wounded, replenished supplies, and maintained the morale of the army. They didn't just help Sparta's warriors fight, they made sure they were prepared to fight again. This role in post-battle recovery was not just about physical care, it was about keeping the spirit of Sparta alive. Spartan women understood that their influence didn't end when the battle was over. They had a responsibility to ensure that the warriors would always be ready for the next fight. Their contributions to this recovery process were as vital as the warriors' efforts on the battlefield. The lasting legacy of Spartan women is something that's often overlooked. Most people have heard of the warriors, the men who fought and died for Sparta's glory, but it's time to recognize the contributions of the women whose strength, wisdom, and leadership were just as crucial to Sparta's success. Spartan women were more than just background figures. They were the foundation of the Spartan military, and their legacy continues to be a subject of discussion and discovery. Through their strength, their education, and their role in maintaining Spartan society, Spartan women proved that their influence wasn't just confined to the household. They broke the mold, defied traditional gender roles, and changed the course of history. And today, it's time for us to recognize their contributions and the critical role they played in shaping Sparta's legendary military success. In the end, Spartan women were more than just warriors' wives. They were warriors in their own right. The recovery process was just as crucial to Spartan success as the battle itself, and women played a pivotal role in making sure the warriors stayed in peak condition. When you think about warriors in the aftermath of a battle, you probably imagine them recovering with their comrades, mending their wounds, and preparing for the next fight. But did you know that Spartan women were often the unsung heroes in this phase of warfare? After every battle, the warriors returned physically exhausted, often injured, and emotionally drained. Their victory or defeat was determined by what happened during the fight, but how they recovered afterward could mean the difference between victory and defeat in the next one. Women were responsible for ensuring that this recovery process went smoothly. They helped nurse the wounded, ensured warriors stayed in optimal physical condition, and made sure that the army was always ready for the next challenge. The idea of Spartan women as mere caregivers doesn't quite capture the gravity of their involvement during these crucial moments. Spartan women were not just responsible for comforting or bandaging wounds. Their involvement in post-battle recovery was strategic, ensuring that the army would remain strong and well prepared for future engagements. In fact, this role was essential in keeping the Spartan military machine running at full capacity, even in the aftermath of battles that stretched the limits of human endurance. But what makes this role of women even more interesting is how it wasn't just about physical recovery. Spartan women were also tasked with maintaining the morale of the troops. After a long and grueling battle, where warriors may have lost brothers or companions, their spirits could easily falter. But Spartan women knew how to keep morale high. Through speeches, words of encouragement, and their sheer emotional strength, they could remind the warriors of their duty to Sparta and to their brothers in arms. It's a role that goes beyond healing physical wounds. It's about restoring the warriors' mental resilience. There's another layer to this. Spartan women weren't just reacting to the aftermath of a battle. They were proactive in preparing for future wars. The resources they managed, from food to equipment, played a key role in keeping the army well supplied and ready to move at a moment's notice. They ensured that the men had what they needed to fight again, providing a logistical backbone that was often invisible to outsiders. Let's not forget that this was a highly organized society where every individual, regardless of gender, had a vital function. Women were expected to contribute to Sparta's readiness for battle in a way that would have been unthinkable in most other societies at the time. They were leaders behind the scenes, ensuring that the Spartan warriors could fight with relentless precision, not just on the battlefield, but off it as well. This might sound controversial. After all, history tends to paint Spartan women as simply the mothers of warriors, but the truth is much more complex. Their contributions during the recovery phase of battle directly shaped Sparta's military effectiveness. It wasn't just about providing care. It was about preparing the warriors mentally, physically, and emotionally for whatever challenges lay ahead. But there's another part to this story, the role Spartan women played in maintaining order after a battle. When a battle ended, chaos didn't always stop there. The dead needed to be buried, the wounded treated, and the warriors had to transition from the intensity of battle back to the discipline of daily life. This emotional and social recalibration was something Spartan women managed through tradition and ritual, helping the soldiers reintegrate and maintain their edge. As you think about this, consider this. The Spartan warriors were respected because they were always ready for battle, but their ability to maintain that readiness was just as much about their home support as it was about their training and combat skills. Spartan women were integral to ensuring that the warriors were more than just strong on the battlefield. They were prepared for anything, including the long road to recovery that followed each battle. The strength of the Spartan women wasn't just in their ability to lead from the sidelines. It was in their mastery of the home front, where recovery, preparation, and emotional support were just as critical as any sword or shield. And it's their quiet, behind-the-scenes leadership that kept the Spartan warriors fighting, not just in one battle but for generations. This incredible level of influence often goes unnoticed, but the reality is that without Spartan women's contributions to post-battle recovery, the Spartan army might not have been the undefeated force it's remembered as today. Women were central to the sustaining of Sparta's military machine, and in the end, their story, hidden in plain sight, shows us that their power was just as vital as the warriors on the front lines. If you enjoyed this epic journey, please subscribe to our channel for more thrilling historical tales. Don't miss out on new videos. Hit the notification bell to stay updated.